The impressive collection on Apple TV has been the talk of the town. Apple's streaming service, which is still in its early stages, is undoubtedly attracting attention. Every new show they produce attracts buzz, which occasionally exceeds the normal level. Wolf Trevant and Jamila, along with Casper, overcame great odds to survive in episode 2, and the experience left a lasting impression on their psyches. They went to forget it and get on with their lives, but no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't. Therefore, let's find out what transpired in the second episode and whether Jamila and Trevant encounter any difficulties. While Trevant Cole was staying the night with his sister Shiona, his thoughts were elsewhere. Although he had returned to his house, he was still struggling with the stress of what had occurred to him in Afghanistan, the hospital. Even his wife, Lyra, had seen that something had shifted inside of him. Trevant used to look up at the sky while pondering what the aliens' purpose might be. He kept seeing visions of his time with Jamila and Casper and was unable to shake them. Shiona was familiar with her brother, therefore she was aware that he wouldn't be at peace with himself until he went out and settled his differences. When her son unintentionally lost hold of his floater and began drowning in the pool, Shiona had planned a party at her home. Trevant went into the swimming pool and pulled the young boy out. For a brief while, the boy was still, and everyone's mouths were open in fear. The child eventually vomited out water and began breathing after Trevant performed CPR on him. But just then, Trevant lost control of his emotions and lost control of himself. He was unaware that he was at home rather than in Afghanistan. When Shiona and other people intervened, he stopped shouting at the young child like a soldier and returned to reality. Trevant quickly departed the area out of embarrassment. Casper had produced his sketches in a book, which Trevant still held. Trevant was searching for the one tip, the one revelation, that would enable them to crack the case. Months had passed since he had returned to his family, but he had been unable to uncover any information, which was aggravating him further. Shiona decided it was about time to talk to her brother when Trevant returned that evening. Trevant was informed that his belongings had been packed and that he should depart to fulfill his desires. Shiona adored her brother and would never have asked him to go, but in this situation, she realized that he was trapped and that the only way for him to end the disagreement was for him to go and settle it. Shiona made an effort to persuade Trevant that she was correct and that he was likely at odds with his wife. Shiona was questioned by Trevant as to how she could even consider hosting a party while the entire globe was on fire. Shiona retorted that although she was well aware of what was going on in the world, she continued to feel that there was nothing wrong with wanting to make the most of the little time she had left with her loved ones. Following the hint that Casper had given in one of his sketches, Trevant discovered that there had been some odd sightings in McCurtain County. Infiltrating an army base camp while dressed in his army uniform, Trevant pretended to be a soldier who had just been sent there. When the guard arrested Trevant and took him to the neighborhood police station, he was about to make a discovery. Worse yet, the sheriff grabbed his bag, which contained Casper's journal, and imprisoned him. Even though no one would listen to her, Jamila was aware that Casper was still alive. She insisted again that Casper could halt the alien invasion with his abilities because she had seen what he was capable of. Jamila wished to investigate what had happened to her buddy, but her mother forbade her from doing so. Jamila eventually chose to leave her home without notifying anyone after having enough. She wrote her mother a note that was beautifully written in which she explained why it was so crucial that she go out and look for her friend. Because Jamila wasn't someone who was easily swayed, she was able to maintain her conviction in the face of ridicule and claims that she was having hallucinations. When Jamila arrived at the hospital where Casper had previously been housed, she looked over the records and discovered that he had been moved to a facility in Paris. Jamila had optimism since she realized she had been right all along to believe Casper was still alive. When Jamila arrived to a refugee camp, she ran across Darwin and Alfie, two of her pals. When Casper first encountered the aliens, Jamila described what transpired and how he used his abilities to neutralize them. Alfie and Darwin made the decision to travel to Paris together so that they wouldn't abandon their pal in her time of need. Unexpectedly, it turned out that the garage belonged to none other than Monty Cuttermill when Darwin and Alfie escorted Jamila there, where they knew there were several automobiles maintained. Jamila and Monty had a touching talk at the conclusion of episode 2 of Invasion Season 2 in which she confided in him that she could still sense Casper in her thoughts. Because of her vivid dreams about him and her keen intuition, she was able to determine that he was still alive. Monty and his sister also consented to travel to Paris with the group, as well as the other two. Jambala was informed by Monty that they may stay in his father's Paris flat while looking for Casper. Darwin and Alfie had no choice but to invite Monty, because he was the only one who could drive. The future episodes will reveal whether Travanti is successful in breaking free from the prison, as well as whether Jambala is eventually successful in locating Casper and discovering what was wrong with him.